Oh, but could you log into the stream? We can test the audio and make sure that that's coming through, okay? Thank you very much, Jesse.
We got some friends coming from Germany early June, so I think we're all just gonna take a week off. So it'll be fun. So you can explore locally and do all kinds of food and American things. That's what all visitors want to do, is just all the American stuff, cheeseburgers.
Aaron, could I borrow you for just a minute? Thank you.
Oh, you want me to stand there?
Yes, please.
No, I have two.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
That's good. Okay, thanks. So either kind of wanted to gauge how the light was working. And we can turn on some lights in the back of the room. Get rid of all that nasty sunlight. Hey, hello.
Hi.
Is this going to be a Denny meeting? Or is it just? Is he taken? Can I sit here?
So we can put it on the way. I also need to grab some coffee from the finance office.
Can you just pass this around like everybody?
Yeah, that might be okay. Because I went to such a round over libraries. So, well, I don't know much.
That's right.
Biggest point. I just want to promise. We're sitting in 11, yeah. Keep this arrangement? Yep, I just feel it. People are welcome. Hey, what's up? Thank you. So, that's what I often. Sure, yeah. And I have the those little bit of plates inside. Hi, Tom. What? Instead of articles, that's kind of an article. Instead of science and technology, it's applied science and technology. And So that already happening? Yes, because Doug will start in July. So it'll be a little bit of a chair because source includes.
Clouds, they're forming, so I had all these ideas that
I remember correctly.
one of them was that I really
So yeah, we were curious as to does that impact? According to the person.
Which would be
No. No. But then they also and all the database. And
here.
he's telling me that we're there, not really. So
Yeah, that's what my idea was. But it wasn't a couple
maybe that's not what it was.
maybe it was played on books and
Something
black.
like this. That's on the even pay more for the other.
South
Right,
Carolina.
that's what we thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh. It was third man. Good place. Oh, Ian. That's okay. No, he's crying. I'm still crying.
Oh, yes, lots more.
Yeah, I had the idea we just passed the box around, those style,
Yeah.
put it on the shoulder.
I'll get to it.
What?
Yeah.
They say, if you want to make it on, you have to still start.
Okay.
I don't think I got it. Yeah, when they call me on the phone, you know how that somebody writes call you on the phone?
Yeah, better than anyone else.
Yeah.
The level of
Yeah,
is
right,
up
so what I said in
here.
Yeah.
You guys are so. But, you know, we were, when I was asking about this.
This is.
Evaluating, you know, what resources we're gonna have in the future, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, great comes down to this
Yeah, movies? Yeah.
Actually, we're gonna be playing charades.
Yeah.
And of course, then they say, well, we'll figure it out. Everybody's surprised and we can take it out there. So, you know, just decide where I'm deciding.
Okay.
What I mean, all the time. Yeah. Or. I had to pour a second cup of coffee to keep from having it still everywhere. Anybody like one? Yes. Where's our stage manager? Because it's time.
Yeah. Well, we're reading on. I see you got the rocking chair. Right. Right, why not?
Yeah, please do. And there's a little bit of a delay. Okay. So before
Okay, I'm gonna start as soon as Julie stops making wrestling noises. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start. I'm sure people will keep coming in. Thank you for coming to the last Librarians Assembly business meeting of this year. Let's see. I don't think is there anyone who has not been to one of these meetings? Okay. You have. Oh, okay. I thought you were raising your hand. Yeah, so I want to, if anyone knows the agenda, it's listed lower down, but I actually want to do it right now. It just seems more sense to me. So first I want to say that some of us will be working on the steering committee, me and Ellen. And so now I want to give you a chance to clap and say his color. And Jesse, Raina, and Craig aren't here, I don't think, but they will be returning next year. So now we can clap them for all the hard work they've done and all the hard work they're doing. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, the new members of the steering committee will be joining Raina, Craig, and Jesse. I knew I was going to do this. It's so many names to keep track of. So they will be joining the next year on the steering committee. Julie Armstorff from Memorial, Irish Librarian. I'm not going to do this because I don't know everyone's job title. Pamela O'Donnell, Beth Harper, who is on the desk right now, and oh my gosh, I'm doing it again.
Steve.
No, I just got it. Yes, Steve Fried, who I don't think is here either right now. All right, so yes, they all stepped up, and we're really excited to have them on next year's steering committee. Okay, so I'm done with my part of it. I'm just going to be introducing people talking now. Yeah, so I think first up is.
You better request to just talk a bit louder.
People are actually listening?
Yeah. Just off.
All right, Nancy Gershels will be doing the administration. I think first, right?
Sure.
Okay.
And I honestly don't have too much for you. You'll tell me, am I in the right location?
Yes, very good.
They say the table noise is really loud.
Okay.
I like this dance routine.
All right. So I honestly don't have many updates on HR design. I know we're only a month out. If that concerns you, I understand. It's a little concerning to me as well. Right now, the recruitment and assessment policy is up at the chancellor for review and approval. I'm trying to read through the draft policy, but until it's approved, I'm actually not going to be sharing it out in case there are changes. So stay tuned. There's a few policies that need to be approved in this final month. So I know we won't have another business meeting this month, but we will be communicating that out. Anne Murphy-Lum is scheduling a session on June 25th. We're going to cover the updated policies, and so she'll be sending out an email shortly letting everybody know. Right now, only onboarding and performance evaluation are final, So we'll definitely be covering those and whatever else on that date. Campus asked me to let you know that June 8th and June 9th is some of their sessions on the new HR design. So in the next week and a half, there may be new developments. June 8th is from 1:30 to 3:30 at the Memorial Union. June 9th is from 9 to 11 at the Memorial Union. I'm just going to be honest. It seems like these are a little bit more geared to what's currently classified staff, because the first one is the layoff policy for university staff. The other breakout session is compensation policies for university staff, job apply, and then finally Q&A at the end. So you can choose to go to those. You can choose to come to what Ann and I will be presenting. You get to make your choices. But the final thing I wanted to talk about, which you're probably going to be hearing a lot about coming up, is what's called job apply. So this is, I can't believe we're sitting in 2015 and the university is now finally getting their first online application system. Woo! It is only an interim system, so they're bridging the gap until they go out and they purchase the Cadillac version. So it's supposed to be up and running next Monday. And they're going to start all university staff, currently classified staff. Job postings will have to go through job apply, and so they will have to apply online in most cases for their positions. Yes, there's some exceptions out on campus, but for the majority of our jobs, we won't have to worry about the exceptions. We'll also be using it for academic recruitments. Once they get some of the bugs worked out, I hope it'll be much easier for those who serve on the search and screen committees, that we can just give you access to the applications instead of uploading everything to the box, which is just very time consuming and comes with its own quirks. So in the next couple of weeks, especially as you go live, I know y'all just went live on Alma, there's quirks, they work out the quirks and everything, and then hopefully adding on some of the things that would make it easier on the applicant and easier on the HR office as well as the search and screen. So I'm sure there'll be articles and other things. You can find some more information on it out on the HR design job apply. I just came from a training, and so I got to pretend I was both an administrator and an applicant. I can definitely say from the applicant side, there are a few things that they need to smooth out, and they took note of them, and hopefully we'll be working on it to make it much easier for anybody who applies. So any questions? Okay.
Beth's here. Everybody clap for her now that she's here. Yeah. Okay. What? So, all right. I can't pull up the agenda right now, but I'm pretty sure that Carrie is next up with you all. Thanks, Carrie. Place. So we had our last University Library Committee meeting of the year a couple weeks ago, and the big news is that Julie Ehrensdorf is coming on to the committee. Michael Enyer is, we don't have him here, but applause to him, he's coming on. So that's at least for our representatives. There's other people changing. A couple of quick updates, I think. One is that the open access policy plan is moving forward. Carl Broman is going to continue. He is the faculty member who's been kind of spearheading this, and he's rotating off the University Library Committee, but he's going to keep working this forward throughout the summer. The plan is to get the policy far enough along so that beginning in fall, we can start having some meetings about it, letting people know about it, getting feedback, all that kind of stuff, sort of more broadly. So during the summer is when he's going to be working with people from sort of the administrative offices that would help us figure out what kinds of policies we need here, just sort of where they go. The other thing I wanted to talk about was consolidation updates. So I'm guessing Tom will kind of let everybody know, but you saw Ian send a message, I think. We had the academic staff assembly had a proposal for a resolution that was, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but basically it was saying that the library has not been inclusive enough in the consolidation plan and not involving enough of the governance groups and not going through the governance appropriately. Ultimately, a different proposal, resolution was passed after it was discussed, if I can let Tom talk about it. But the resolution that was passed did send the University Library Committee, which is one of the governance groups, direction to make sure we are appropriately included in the consolidation plan. So at our last meeting, we talked about that, and we have been. I hope you have access to minutes, and you can have seen what we've been seeing and talking about. We didn't talk about anything different. We didn't sort of get any news about consolidation at the library committee, other than, certainly not more than what we got at the big meeting from Ed and with everyone else. But we did talk about communication a little bit and how governance should be included going forward. So ultimately what we decided was, I'm trying to make sure there's nothing else to mention. No, this is probably the main thing. So ultimately what we did is we did vote on directions to the university, or directions to library administration and to the library consolidation working group about what we would expect, how we would expect governance to be included. I guess, we voted on it and it's approved. The minutes for the library committee won't be approved now until October. So I did verify that I could share the language from what we voted on, because I'm guessing people are going to want it. But for now, I'll just read it and then I'll email it maybe through you guys. So I'll just read it aloud. The Library Consolidation Working Group should develop a detailed plan for how and when information about consolidation planning and recommendations are communicated to stakeholder groups and the public. So that's sort of the broader one. The working group should also develop a detailed plan for getting feedback from the campus community and governance groups before submitting a final recommendation to the provost. This plan should incorporate the following steps in the following order. Provide a draft report to ULC. Incorporate the changes from ULC into the report. Convene public fora to ensure revised draft is appropriately shared with governance groups. Come back to the ULC with a final recommendation and bring the recommendation to the provost. So just to make sure you all know, and this was voted on and approved, both of those plans are also supposed to be shared with ULC. So there's not a lot of action probably going to happen in this over summer, but know that in the fall, we'll continue to get more updates, and probably the working group will have, I know the working group is already talking about a more detailed plan for how they're going to communicate what to whom when. I think that's it for ULC.
Question, I missed what you were saying about open access policy. Is this for the university or for the library or?
For the university. And yeah, there's some discussion about how to work with System 2, maybe do it with Milwaukee.
We don't already have a policy on open access?
We sure don't. Yeah, so it would be, we don't have a lot of sort of official things to share, but if you look, we're looking at Minnesota and some other schools, so we could talk about what the model looks like there. But the idea is we would be having a policy in place in which faculty are all, probably faculty give the university some rights to share their materials before they give up the rights to publishers or whoever else they give them up to. That's kind of the norm. There's workarounds and exceptions and all that stuff. It seems like they're doing a really good job. They actually, more than other schools, are talking about including staff and students in the plan. Anything else? Tom Durkin with the ASA report.
Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of different academic staff assembly meeting notes, one from April 13th and one from May 11th. If anybody is interested, I printed out the notes and I'll send them out to the email list too. Okay, so there you go. So for the academic staff, well, to go back a little bit, the academic staff assembly meeting is open for all academic staff to attend and listen. They're always held on the second Monday of each month at 3:30 to 5 p.m. in Bassam Hall, room 272. The next meeting, there aren't usually meetings over the summer, so the next academic staff assembly meeting will be held on September 14th. All right, so for the meeting from April 13th, I'm not going to go through everything that's in the notes here, but just to mention a few things. There are usually some memorial resolutions that are presented at the academic staff assembly. And for the April 13th meeting, there was one for Patty Klecker. She was from the School of Pharmacy. They were also presented the academic staff excellence award winners, and I've got a printout here that lists all those winners, so that's always nice for academic staff. There was a report about titling promotions. So Dahlberg and Janowski presented a report, and probably the most important thing from the report, they found that academic staff have a lot of erroneous beliefs about titling and promotions, and so there needs to be additional communication from HR so that people are clear on how promotions and titling actually work. So, for example, right now there isn't really merit pay in for academic staff, but a lot of people believe that exists, and that's the kind of thing that academic staff need to be updated about. The Assembly discussed and voted on a series of resolutions, and I'm not going to go through all of them. Probably for us, the most important one was a resolution supporting the funding of the new chemistry building because of the chemistry library. If you switch over to the next month, you can see that I've got some notes here from Rebecca Plank addressed the assembly at the May 11th meeting. It's not really clear where that chemistry building plan is going right now because I don't know if the university has the money for that. So moving on to the May 11th meeting, there were a couple more memorial resolutions, one for Tess Hauser from the Wisconsin Longitudinal Study, another one for Paul Ginsberg, who is a long-standing dean of students. And those are always nice for staff to hear about our colleagues too. Much of the meeting was taken up by a presentation by Rebecca Blank, and I'll go through some of her, it was a fairly long presentation, so I'm going to just sort of summarize some of her main points. For this upcoming fall, admission numbers are very strong, and for example, they had 33,000 applications, which is an increase of about 15% compared to last year. And in particular, there was about a 13% increase in admissions for students of color. There's been a lot of discussion about the economic impact of the university in the state of Wisconsin. She gave some examples of how positive the university's economic impact is for Wisconsin. For example, for every $1 that we get from the state government, the university spends $24 because we bring in a lot of grant money, for example. In total, the university has about a $15 billion impact in the state, and I've got a link here for you guys if you want to look at that report. As Nancy was mentioning, some parts of HR design will be implemented this upcoming July. The State Joint Finance Committee announced that there will likely be no additional tax revenue, so that won't be in place to push back some of the potential budget cuts. As of August, there will be a structural deficit of about $96 billion. About 55% of that amount has been resolved through tuition increases and other ways of bringing in additional funding to the university, but that means about 45% of that structural deficit is yet to be accounted for. Because of changes in the state budget as potentially implemented, there will not be shared governance included in state law, but it's not really clear if the Board of Regents would reenact shared governance as like an internal thing. So we may have shared governance after July 1st, or we might not. It's not really clear right now, so just stay tuned. Let's see, funding for the chemistry building is unresolved. And the Alumni Association is out making contact in the business community to try and grow support for the university. So there was an update from ASEC. Probably the thing that I thought was most interesting from that is that staff on limited appointment will potentially be able to participate in shared governance in the future. There was an election through the Academic Staff Assembly for ASEC as well as different standing committees. So in ASEC, Crandall, Shapiro, and McFadden were most recently elected to ASEC. ASEC is the administrative committee that's part of the academic staff assembly. So just for people who are interested. There are a whole series of standing committees, and I'm just listing a couple here because of library staff. So Ian Benton was elected to the district committee, so hooray for Ian.
Excitement!
And for the mentoring committee, Heather Welton was elected to that committee. So hooray for Heather. All right, so skipping over the academic staff policy procedures changes, that was just sort of procedural stuff. There were a number of resolutions that were passed. I actually think that Carrie did a pretty good job of summarizing the discussion. I don't really have anything to add beyond what you said. I did bring a printout of the resolution. This is the resolution that was discussed, and there were some changes that were made to it, and that was passed. So the notes and minutes from that meeting the official minutes will be probably released in September, so people are interested, they can see those minutes in the future. I don't really have anything else. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Just a question about, is it really a structural deficit of 96 billion?
That's what,
I think million.
did I put million? Oh,
I think you said
yeah,
million.
okay, I'm sorry about that. 96 million. Okay. I think I put billion in my notes, so 96 million.
It's a big 96
Yeah.
billion.
Any other questions?
I thought I would mention the one thing I've had about the assembly meeting for anyone who didn't go, and just the fact that this resolution came up saying governance needs to be more involved in the library consolidation. So there was some things about it that were kind of negatively framed, but in general, I was sort of impressed and surprised by how much people who are not necessarily library people, who were not library people, were really interested in, they were talking eloquently about how important their libraries are to them and that kind of thing. So that was good, and maybe we can cultivate that somehow, even if it wasn't, they weren't feeling really great about how we did something at the time, those few people, but in general, there was a really positive sentiment among the academic staff.
Anything else?
Now we're going to move on to steering committee business. First up is Ellen with, I didn't put treasury on the agenda, but I assume we're ready for that. Okay, thanks. Hello, so we had a pretty successful high tea. So thank you all for coming. If you still have some recognitions you'd like to submit, the survey is still up. I will send out another reminder link with that following today's meeting or tomorrow. We brought in, it's a little late getting in today, so I forgot to review the numbers, but we brought in a little over $1,000, I believe, and we spent about $400 on the tea, so it's a net gain of about $600 to help with our programming for the future. And if you haven't paid your dues, please do so. Any amount is helpful. And then in terms of programming, we have a summer social schedule for June 11th, that's Thursday, from 5 to 7. And I've reserved what hopefully will be, that is with reserving things at the union, they'll assign you a room later, but I put a request in for the Wisconsin Inn room because there's an outdoor aspect to that. It's up on the second floor. You can get out to the trip deck, so we can be inside or out. We'll provide a pizza or two, then come on, and it's just an opportunity for us to socialize at the end of the year, leading into the summer, reconnect. And that is what we have for programming and treasury update. Any questions? Okay. And last is Ian Benton with professional concerns.
Hello, everybody. So professional concerns. As I'm rotating off, one, I believe that Marina Bloom is going to take over as the chair of the Professional Concerns Committee, but I'm not certain if that's been locked down. That'll be new business for the continuing steering committee members. So the Professional Concerns Committee, since I believe late February, has been conducting listening sessions every week to kind of attempt to engage with all of us academic staff, engage with the constituency to see what's on people's mind, condense that down into something that's more than hearsay and talk in the hallways, and then pass that on to executive committee members in a clearer sort of way. And I hope that's what we've been accomplishing. We've been sending out our notes from listening sessions as we go. The listening sessions have been, we've been seeing 2 or 3 people per listening session as we've moved from place to place to place to place around campus. And there's been a little bit, we get feedback about the times, do they or don't they work, the places, do they or don't they work. So our approach has honestly been to canvas broadly. I think that the idea that we can find a single time, a single place when we're going to be able to get a whole cross-section of everybody is a little bit futile. So I'm really glad for the attendance that we've gotten and the thoughtful participation that we've heard. The final meeting was concluded yesterday, I believe. Or was it? Yeah, it was Tuesday. So our final meeting was concluded on Tuesday. And going forward, the Professional Concerns Committee, as it stands, will discuss how they want to continue, not continue, adjust these professional concerns listening sessions. I think one of the things that will be very useful for making that decision is, again, information from all of you. Perhaps we'll just ask. Send out one of those email things, but right now, my sense is that it's a useful mechanism, but we might want to scale back and not be doing it on a weekly basis. So probably continue a rotation. Honestly, the biggest attendances we've gotten have been at Memorial. We feel it's very important to continue to move around and provide opportunities for people who are on the west end of campus, may have difficulty traveling over here, but the crowds have been coming out at Memorial primarily. We sent out a summary of what we've been hearing from people. You should all have that email. It was sent out to Librarians Assembly, the Librarians Assembly list, as well as the Executive Committee list. And as far as the action on these things, we're not asking for a specific action, communication, response from exec. We're simply trying to clarify concerns that people have so that the Executive Committee can think about that in their future communications. For instance, we've had the wonderful budget talk that Nancy gave. We've had an update on consolidation. And as these all-staff meetings and communications from exec continue, hopefully if we provide clear ideas of the questions that people have, they can give us the best, most authentic answers that they have available. So in the previous note that went off, one of the major points that we hear coming up over and over again, and in fact, this is a point that came up at every listening session, had to do with layoffs. And specifically, people wanting to understand better how layoff decisions would be made, with the idea that with an understanding of how the process flows, folks can think about their career for that year. They can think about how they plan their career, how they act within that time period to generate skills or make choices other places. So that was one of the things that came up pretty frequently. We also saw questions regarding unfilled positions, especially in the mid-tier of management, and how those unfilled positions do or don't create reporting chain problems of having mistakes of libraries say, the science libraries, this came up a bunch, and being concerned that the lack of a filled position creates perhaps disconnect with what science libraries are interested in the consolidation processes. So again, this is what we're hearing people say. So, but on the flip side of that, we also have people saying, why hire more managers in a time when we have budget problems? So I think that it's interesting to note and well worth acknowledging that we have both things coming out of our constituency, concerns about hiring management, but then also people who are concerned that management positions are still lying open and the problems that causes. So worth noting that there's complexity there. And then praise for the budget presentation. And then a question about staffing and morale all around. And to whatever extent a plan is able to be made for something like that, people wondering about where do we go, what direction do we do to help mitigate some low morale in the general library system. I suspect that there's some low morale in the entire UW system right now too. And then of course questions about HR redesign, which Nancy filled in a few blanks for us at the top, but the Classified Staff Congress just kind of voted, they disapproved of HR redesign, and I think that
The recruitment and assessment policy.
just the recruitment and assessment policy, okay. So I know that there's some curiosity about how that's going to resolve at this point. But
So just to fill in, I can tell you that they voted it down. So basically, it got moved to the chancellor's office without them offering their desired amendments, changes, etc. So it just, and part of I wasn't there, so speaking from what I heard from people who were there, part of the problem was I understood at first they got this really big document, like 63 pages. And then when they came back, it was a much smaller document. And they were wondering what happened, and what they did is they took procedure and the process, and they separated it into 2 documents, but it wasn't really enough time for the classified Congress to review and feel comfortable, etc. And especially when, times are crunch right now. So I appreciate their concerns, but now they've kind of given up their voice and it went to the chancellors.
okay, well, the nice thing I can say about HR redesign is that many of us on the steering committee have been participating in the HR redesign panels and discussions and listening throughout, trying to answer questions. Of course, that was the other thing that professional concerns listening sessions were intended to do, is provide good information where that information was known, try and get rid of the rumor mill to whatever extent possible. And HR redesign is where we've been attempting to provide documentation in a lot of ways. So I've actually been really impressed with what I've seen from it, and their documentation is quite complete. So I'd recommend that anybody who's intensely curious about the HR redesign policy or any specific element of it should tap into that documentation. And if you don't know how or where it is, I will get it for you. Just let me know. With that said, that's what the Professional Concerns Committee has been up to. I suspect that that's what the Professional Concerns Committee will continue to be up to in the coming years. But we'll pause for just a moment and reassess with all of you how we can best be serving the constituency of academic staff. With all that said, does anybody have any questions for me? All right. Well, thank you all very much for participating in those listening sessions. And yes,
Yeah, I do have a question. You were going to give out some kind of grants and things like that. Did that ever come about?
oh yeah, that was so in the previous year. So it would have been it was the professional development programming allowances, and they're in the works. And the Professional Development Programming Allowances Committee exists now. It's separate from Librarians Assembly. It kind of exists in an administrative limbo all by itself. We talked with Nancy, and even though that's not a Librarians Assembly business thing, I can totally put in a little plug here that if you're looking for professional development money, this is a group that can provide it. But you need to understand that this is professional development money that is for groups of people. The whole idea behind this charter is bang for buck to do local professional development work. So having things that are cross-departmental, great applications. Having things that are GLS-wide, even better. I can think about, we've financed a lot of webinars this semester, some dealing with space planning, some dealing with cataloging rules that spanned across CTS and across middles. We've done funding for the reference retreat. We did an honorarium for their speaker, came in from the Center for the Study of Healthy Minds. So these are the sorts of broad application projects that we really want to continue funding and really want to continue supporting. And again, I happen to be the chair of that committee as well. So if you have questions about that, you can contact me directly. And that makes me think maybe I ought to put out another little email bug in people's ears as we're coming into the start of the next fiscal year. It's a great time to put in another application for professional development money. Thanks for that segue, Jude.
Thank you for hosting all the listening sessions. I know it wasn't easy for you guys to do it all, but I think it was needed. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody, thank you very much for being so participatory. And Erin, back to you, Erin.
Oh. That's it. I mean, unless there's, something you want to bring up, you want to discuss in this forum.
I guess the new committee will be deciding on meetings for next year and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Was it normally the summer is off and then we get back to business meetings in September?
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
There's plenty of food. People are still hungry. And coffee.
Yep. I'll turn off the live stream and then everybody can just enjoy some more coffee and cheese and crackers. And thank you all very much.